after looking through it, I'm like, this makes too much sense not to implement. The biggest question mark was, how do we take what's in that book and put it into the healthcare world, which is healthcare is vastly different financially than most other businesses, which is, I guess, something that every business owner says, my business is different. So,
hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this. And it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. Today, another Profit First success story. I think there's almost 1 million businesses using Profit First. And maybe you know one of the most successful and well-known, it is the Savannah Bananas. I just heard that they, by a percentage basis, make more profit than any other baseball team in America. Isn't that amazing? You can go back and listen to the episode with Emily Cole, the co-founder of the Savannah Bananas, and hear how they did it. The focus today, though, is in healthcare. But in reality, the issues and the lessons are transferable to any kind of business. I love when you can learn something from another industry that you can pull over and apply to yours. See, we don't need to invent new stuff. We just need to take what's out there and make it work for our business. Our guest is Daniel Tribby. He's dedicated his career to improving the way healthcare entrepreneurs operate their business. He's got speaking engagements, coaching, and books featuring the surprisingly simple tips that business owners can implement to immediately improve their business, and how it also cares for patients. His book is called Uneffing Private Healthcare, the Playbook on Owning Your Dream Practice. He offers solutions in starting and growing a profitable medical practice, and as I said, any business, and how you can separate yourself and turn your clients or patients into raving fans. He's also co-owner of Regenerative Sports Spine and Spa. It's a regenerative medicine business in Orlando, Florida. He also exited this business in 2023, 7-figure walkaway. Let's learn how he did it. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Daniel Tribby. It's great to have you join us today.
hey, Rocky, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I'm excited to learn from you. Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Absolutely. I've been in healthcare for the better part of 20 years. And I've experienced kind of all different angles of it, from being a provider in the physical rehabilitation world into doing medical sales. Started my first business in the medical sales world, had some early success. And because of that success, I swore I'd never go back to working for anybody else ever again. So that that led me into opening up a regenerative medicine practice in 2017, which my business partner and I grew to seven figures pretty quickly. And we just exited it this past year in the end of September of 2023 at a nice multiplier. It was a nice little thing to propel whatever's next for the future. And during the latter stages of that time and extending into this current day, I do some consulting for private healthcare owners that are predominantly cash pay on proper ways to grow their business, how to excel their profit, and kind of have success in a world where healthcare is so scrutinized right now.
I come from a healthcare space, so I understand the healthcare model. And, the funny thing is, it really doesn't matter what kind of business you have. You all fit into certain of the same constraint models. So if you're in healthcare and you take insurance, you essentially are in a model where somebody else dictates your price. It's no different than trying to sell Nike sneakers on Amazon, right? Your price is dictated for you. Yeah. You don't get the ability to change it. Other parts of healthcare, you have high profit margin, you have concierge care. Again, all these businesses fit into certain models. Once you understand the model you're in, then you understand your levers and you can figure out, hey, what are the buttons I need to push to make sure that within the business model I'm working in, I can be profitable. And you used Profit First in that business. How did you first learn about Profit First?
Yeah, so I was early on. I was just getting started into my own private practice and learning all the things that I didn't know at the time, right? And probably doing a lot of what's mentioned in that book of balanced banking, right? Where you're just paying everything from one checking account and hoping for the best every month. But I had a client of mine who was also a small business owner, and he had read Profit First, and he said, "You got to check this book out. Are you familiar with it?" And I said, "No." At that time, I didn't do a whole lot of reading compared to now I put away 30, 35 books a year, just to keep up with the professional and personal growth. But at the time, that wasn't part of my normal lifestyle. And so I picked it up and read it. And after looking through it, I'm like, this makes too much sense not to implement. The biggest question mark was, how do we take what's in that book and put it into the healthcare world, healthcare is vastly different financially than most other businesses, which is, I guess, something that every business owner says, my business is different. So,
it's funny. I was just at a program speaking and we were hanging out for the weekend, which was kind of cool. And they were like, well, how do I make this work for my business? And I said, that's the cool thing about Profit First. Profit First always works. What you have to figure out is, how do you adapt it to your business? And he was so relieved. He was like, normally what happens is everyone tells me I have to fit my business to their system. And I'm just thankful that, wait, I can actually adapt this to work the way that I work. And like, yes, you can. He's like, perfect. And we actually mapped out for him, because he had multiple businesses. I mean, he's in real estate. And then they've got Airbnb, and then they got management services. They've got construction. Like, how do I do this across all these different businesses? How do I make it easy? We showed them a simple way to do it, to combine a lot of it and make it work for them. And they were like, cool, this actually makes sense and we can do it. And I think that's the biggest struggle when we see people implement Profit First, the first biggest struggle is opening the bank accounts. The second biggest struggle is figuring out like how much to put in each account. And as part of that, though, I think if you don't have a just standard business that the book kind of speaks to directly, you have to figure out exactly what accounts you need for your business and how to make the rhythm and the allocations work for your business. And when you can do that, then everything works.
Yeah, and it takes some time. It takes some adjustment, to figure out what does work. And especially you look at bank accounts like the vault, right, where you need to be keeping, 3, 6, or even up to 9 months worth of expenses paid in that account, depending on the industry. And when I'm consulting with some of my clients, I tell them that. They're like, how the hell are we supposed to get there? I'm like, well, you go slowly. Instead of taking profit cuts for yourself every quarter, you put it into your vault, or you divide it, or you split it some way so you can build that up. And that was something that was huge for us, especially when COVID hit, right? So if you don't, we were a cash pay practice. So I'm not waiting on insurance companies to process stuff and send me money. I'm getting paid right there on the spot. Now, we had a bunch of success because we were cash pay. And so we catered to a very different type of person than the typical individual using their insurance for healthcare. So, but having that account available to help support some of the bills is crucial in a time frame like that. Or even if you are, I have a physical therapist that's cash pay that I work with right now, and he's about to go out on paternity leave. He's got a baby coming, and I'm like, aren't you glad you have that account now? Like, you're the guy, you're the dude, you're the provider. You have one other person on your staff, so you have enough cash flow now to support yourself. You're obviously not going to take probably 30 or 60 days off like your wife might be, but you're going to probably take a couple weeks. And having that ability and understanding that that vault can supply you the necessary time to be off and not have so much anxiety about, are the bills going to get paid? That's a crucial piece of the puzzle when there's any sort of tragedy or, pandemic, so to speak.
And the reality is we're all going to face it, right? It's going to come in one form or the other. It comes in the form of COVID. It comes in the form of health. It comes in the form of kids. Unfortunately, most business owners wouldn't be able to be home for that period. But, when you've got cash, you have choices. You have freedom. You went into this business. Why? To lose money? No. You didn't go in this business to work 1 million hours a week. No. You wanted time, and you wanted cash, and you wanted the freedom that came from that. And that's truly what that vault account provides for you. And I remember when COVID hit, and I was talking to, with clients and with people who were using Profit First, and they were all like, well, our vault is stacked, because they had been doing it for a long time. They're like, we'll figure our way through these changes because we have time on our side. And that's it. As long as you can survive till tomorrow, you can figure it out. I think most business owners are smart. They know what they're doing. They just sometimes hit a cash flow problem. And if you can't get through the problem, you're screwed. But if you can get through the problem, you can pivot, you can steer, you can change. And that's truly what that vault account is all about. And I think every business owner having 6 months of operating expenses, in your account, along with your pay, it allows you to sleep at night, and it allows you to make decisions that are more in line with your values, right, instead of getting stuck doing what you might be forced to do.
Yeah, 1,000% agree with you. I think and you mentioned an important thing is values, right? Which, if you go back a few minutes ago, we were talking about insurance companies dictating your price. They don't dictate your price, they dictate your value, right? Which is something that nobody can dictate for me. I dictate my value based upon the results that I get, not what an insurance company says my value is, right? So there's such a huge dynamic there when you can take some of that power back to yourself and say, my value is this, and therefore I'm going to put it into my company to support it for the long term. The issue that I find arises is that people don't make the choice ahead of time to have that vault account. They wait until something significant happens to then say, what can we do in the future to help solve this problem should it happen again, which was my issue. That's what happened to me. So we had, I think it was 2018, maybe even early 2019. I remember being I opened the practice with a partner. And so we're standing in there, and we were waiting on some checks to clear that hadn't cleared, but we're staring at a payroll that's about to clear the next day. And we don't have the money in our account. And I'm like, oh God, what do we do? So I called a family member, and I was like, hey, can you do me a solid? And that's the worst phone call to ever make, right? Because it almost feels like yourself when you're making that call, you feel like you're failing, and you feel like your family member thinks the same thing about you, right? And so you make that phone call, you get the money, you pay the bills, and then as soon as those checks clear, you turn around and scratch another check right back out to the person that lent you that money, But that was a time frame where I was like, hey, we got to do something different. And that's kind of, I think, when Profit First entered the picture at the same time. And it took a little finagling to get my business partner at the time to buy into it. There was some pushback there of how we're going to do that if we have this problem here of paying bills. And I'm like, well, this is going to solve that problem because we're going to put money ever so slowly into an account that can handle this issue should it ever arise again. And as soon as we got the buy-in and we started doing it, it was amazing how much more money we kept in the business and how much more money we were able to pay ourselves. It's amazing how when you do things that other people tell you work, then it actually works. It's crazy how that happens, right?
It is amazing. And, I think as business owners, though, we're constantly being sold stuff. I get 50 emails a day, half of them telling me how they're going to get me 100 new clients. And I'm like, I can't even handle 100 new clients. So you have no idea what you're doing.
Right.
That's not going to work. And honestly, I don't think most of the time that they actually deliver on the results. So business owners become very jaded and they're like, hey, how do I know this is for real? And I think the thing that I love most about Profit First is you can get the book from the library, right? If you really want to, or you can find enough stuff online to read about it for free, or just listen to this and get the information for free. Go implement it on your own. You don't need to pay anybody, and go see if it works for you. And I think that's the greatest part of it, is just that ability. And that's why I know for us, we have to provide 100x more value than just Profit First. I mean, that just for us is the beginning of what we do to help business owners. But I just love the fact that you don't have to pay somebody to make it happen.
That's true. I think in the beginning, it's smart steps that you can take that are cost effective, right? This is one thing I tell my starters: do not spend money on dumb stuff, right? Like this is a no. We don't buy tchotchkes. You're not spending money on T-shirts with your logo on it. Like don't buy dumb stuff. Okay, pens, notepads. Stop. Spend money on marketing and sales, because those are the two engines that run the business. But then be smart enough to spend a little time building up the financial aspects of how you want to save for the future, how you want to govern your expenses, how you're going to pay yourself. And having the ability to do that in a cost-effective way is super important, which I think Profit First definitely fills that gap. And then when you start growing to a certain amount and you're generating big cash flow, get yourself a Profit First CPA or a financial planner, somebody like Rocky, like yourself, and to help you out once you get into the depths of, we have some extra cash flow. What are we going to do with this, right?
You telling me T-shirts and tchotchkes aren't marketing?
Oh, dear Lord.
They don't generate tons of clients?
Jesus, fix it. No. That drives me crazy.
Well, and there's a ton beyond that. I mean, I know for the trades, it's the fancy truck versus the truck that runs.
Right.
Clients don't buy your services because you showed up in the latest pickup. And if your car is too fancy, they think you're too expensive.
Right.
And so you have to have that appropriate balance. So these days you work with business owners and helping them out with their systems and processes and so forth.
Yeah.
And I know for many businesses, that's a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we talked about, though, up front is understanding the type of business owner that you are. Can you explain the two types of business owners?
Yeah, for me, especially in healthcare, what I see is there are the two types are, I want to learn how to be a business owner. All right. So most of us go through school to become providers, to learn how to treat, bumps and bruises and pains and strains or cancers or teeth or whatever it may be. You learn how to do that. You get really, really good at adding some sort of value to people in need, helping them.
And this is no different than somebody learning to be a plumber,
right,
or being a painter. You're learning how to provide a service.
Yes. And you get really good at providing that service, but where most of them fail is how to run a business around how to provide that service, right? That's where the issue is. And so I see there's one type that really wants to learn the business. They want to learn how to put together proper systems. They want to learn how to do proper hiring. They want to learn all of the ins and outs, and they're willing to sacrifice time in the beginning to learn the stuff they need to learn so that in the future, they can be an owner versus an owner operator or just an operator, right? They want to be the ones that are overseeing the business, the top down view of it without having to work in it so often. They look to work themselves out of a job, right? Or to be the guy that is the like for us, if we're working cash pay, like you're the guy that only works 10 hours a week and you see a specific type of patient versus your employee physicians who see any and every type of patient, right? Like you're the go-to upper echelon guy who owns the business that not everybody gets to see, right? Because you put the time and the work in to do that, and you've sacrificed to be able to identify as that business owner. So that's one identity. The other identity is the person who wants the accolade, that you want the title, but you don't want to know how to run it. You just want, these are the people that invest in the 60 leads in 60 days and all these other marketing, cookie cutter marketing types of things that then they complain about later, right? And if you're that type of person, I'm not knocking it. It's fine. But know that you're that person. And know that you're going to have to invest money and say like a fractional COO or people who know how to run a practice efficiently, not $65,000 to $80,000 for a practice administrator, but for someone who actually understands the ins and outs of how to run a business. Pay them, let them run it for you so you can be the guy with the name on the door that sees the patients, but doesn't actually run the business, but has the accolades and the cash flow of a business owner. Neither one is wrong nor right, better or worse. Just know which one you are so you know how to invest in either your time or invest the money to have what you want.
What I find is I think if you don't know how to do it, and I'm not saying you have to learn how to do everything, but you've at least got to have some sort of dashboard in place to understand that the person you've got running your business is actually running your business.
Right.
Because I've heard so many stories of fraud, and then you hear stories of incompetence, and it's always stories of excuses, right? And think about it. You all have employees and they say they're going to do X, but they don't do X. And if you're not double checking to make sure, especially for somebody running your business,
right?
Do they have the right metrics? Are you judging them weekly on those metrics? And are you keeping your pulse on the business? Because if you're not, things can change very, very quickly. And at the end of the day, if they know your entire system and they built it, what's to prevent them from replacing you as a provider?
Right.
So
and
I think there's a fine line there.
1,000%. And the biggest thing that I tell people is you cannot hire or put people in charge of your business solely by abdication, right? You have to put them in by delegation, which the difference is abdication means, I'm going to hire Rocky because you're a CFO. You have financial experience. Cool. I don't want to talk down. I want to deal with money. You handle it. Here's my books. Go. And so Rocky's going to step in and do things Rocky's way. And if I come in later and go, why'd you do it that way? That's not how I want it run per my business model. But Rocky doesn't know that. Now I'm mad at Rocky, and I think everybody who comes in here is not good enough, and so I need to do it all myself, right? That's hiring by abdication. That's just giving people permission to do stuff without actually giving them guidelines. Versus if I have established real values for my business, boundaries for what I want everybody to do, and an actual system that I've learned and invested in, I can then hire people and delegate. I want you to do this job within these guidelines here because this is how I want the business to unfold. This is my dream. This is what I'm planning to build. This is how I want to build it, and having transparency in that. Like if you've ever read, we'll talk about a second book here is Scrum. Have you ever read Scrum, the Jeff Sutherland book?
I haven't, but I'm familiar with it.
So he talks about transparency. And I don't want to touch on the Scrum method, but he talks about transparency in the business, letting everybody from the top down know financially how you're doing, know marketing-wise what you're doing, know sales-wise what you're doing, systems, SOPs. Everyone should know. You should have the ability to share with everyone how the business is doing and what direction you want to go. So if you know that part, then you know how to hire the right people to deliver upon the job or the thing that you want them to deliver upon, rather than just hiring them and saying, go.
And so for me, that's what I call dashboards. So a dashboard in the business might say, how many people walked in the front door? Or how many appointments did we have this week? How many leads did I get? How many phone calls? Again, every business is different. You got to come up. It's the same concept. It's what's your metric.
Right.
Another metric.
Benchmarks, real benchmarks.
Benchmarks. Yeah. And another metric might be, if in your case, it might be, okay, I'm paying you for 8 hours. I expect you to see 20 patients in 8 hours. How many patients did you actually see in that 8 hours? For somebody else, it might be a service call and like, okay, we're paying you for 8 hours. How many billable hours of service calls do you have? And I tell my clients to post the numbers so that everyone naturally creates a competition, right? It's that they naturally, they start to see how everyone else is doing. And then they decide, hey, this isn't the place I want to work, or how do I improve? And then it's not a question of that, because you would be shocked at how many people, I'm paying you for 8 hours, but you've only got 4 billable hours. You can't run a business like that, right? Unless it's your fault you didn't give them enough work to do.
Right.
And so it's understanding those types of things. And also, if you hire outside marketing, okay, what is the expectation? How quickly is it going to happen? How are we going to measure this? And what's my return on investment in lifetime customer value? Again, it's all pretty simple math, but you've got to build your dashboard for your business, because somebody else's is a little bit different. And you've got to measure it every week, because what I notice is it's not hard for things to slide little by little by little. And 3 months later, there's no cash in the bank. And you're like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? Well, all the markers were telling you that we were going this way. Weren't you looking?
It's amazing to me, like I said, the people who are, it's like I don't want to deal with it, so you do it. Right? And so you lose control. And when they don't do it the way that your expectation is, you ask them why. And then they tell you, well, in my experience, I do it this way. And you say, well, who taught you that? It's not their fault. Like, do you want somebody working on your business the same way they did it for somebody else's business? Maybe, but most likely not. Right? So if we're going to hire the right people, we have to hire them based upon the connection to the values within the business, right? But also a connection to the expectation. So this is why I love when, if I'm teaching how to hire, or if I'm hiring myself, and I get the question that says, if I'm brought into this position, what does success look like in the first 90 days? What does it look like within a year? And if you're the business owner, you need to know that. Why are you hiring this person? You don't want to just sit back and say, hey, we need another front desk person to answer some phones and make some appointments. No, you want to know exactly what it is they're going to be doing. If you're going to hire a marketer, what's your expectation, and can the marketer deliver on that? But if you don't understand the way marketing works, they can sell you just about anything. And you're going to be like, okay, sounds good, because you do that. I don't understand that, so you go and do it. Lose a bunch of money, and then you get mad at them and feel like somebody gypped you when you didn't take the time and energy to find the resources to make sure you knew at least enough to be dangerous, right? So, and I won't work with the people who invest in the 60 leads in 60 days types of mindsets, because they're always looking for quantity. They're not looking for the quality. They want to pay a low price for high quantities, and that never fares well in business. It just doesn't, unless you run a multi-billion-dollar business and you have a team dedicated to sending, thousands of emails every day, right? That's a different story. But when you're working in the typical small business, which, small business in my mind is anywhere from like 1.5, 2 million up to 10 million, right? If you're under that amount, you're probably more like a micro business. You're not really a small business, so to speak. But if you're into that multi-seven figures, that's actually a small business. You need to know what the hell's going on. Like you need to know what's happening inside of your business and be able to hire people that are part of a system that you have designed, not just paying for something you hope works.
And I think most businesses, the way I look at them, most businesses are a math equation. And behind the math equation are what you talk about, which are systems and processes of how the business works.
Right.
If you think of McDonald's, it doesn't matter where you go into McDonald's, right? They're all a little bit different, but there is a system and a process to get clients in and out of that operation. And some people, you might like Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A does it very differently. They're both in the fast food business, but they each do things differently. And Chick-fil-A said, hey, our values are we're closed Sunday. And they closed on one of the busiest days of the year. And yet they make more money than McDonald's does per location.
Yes, they do.
Because they've created a culture and they've created a way to do that. And their employees behave in certain ways.
Right.
And they hire to that. And there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying one is better than the other. They are different. They serve different clients. They serve in different ways. But in both of those situations, they put a lot of time and effort into building out their numbers, their systems and their processes, and holding people accountable to that, right, and making sure that it's done the way it should be done. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the bigger key.
True, definitely. And I think it's interesting. McDonald's, yes, their product is burgers and fries and fast food, but their business is actually in real estate. Believe it or not, McDonald's owns some of the most prized real estate on the planet, and that's why they do so well too. It's location based versus Chick-fil-A doesn't have to have all of their locations right by interstate exits because they've established that quality of service and cleanliness in a fast food restaurant to be the most important value for their clientele. Therefore, their clientele will drive the extra 2 miles off the interstate to get to their location versus the McDonald's. Interesting how those two businesses, operate so on different value systems and still generate billions of dollars every year.
They do. And Chick-fil-A, I'll call it buy a franchise for $10,000, but you're really not buying a franchise. And they are extremely picky on who they will let become a Chick-fil-A franchise participant is what I'll call it, because you're not really an owner at all. McDonald's is different. They've got a different model for theirs. And again, no one is right or wrong. It's the one that's good for them. And they've spent the time to figure out how they want to do it. Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think for me, the one thing that most business owners don't do enough of is schedule thinking time with good questions about how do I operate, run, and manage and evaluate my business on a regular basis. Too often we're so busy in the business, we're running around with our, hair on fire, putting out fires everywhere. And like you said, if you don't do it up front, it becomes very hard to do it when you're in the middle of a fire.
Right. Yeah, and it becomes more expensive too. You kind of look at it as a double-edged sword because the people that want to invest in the learning at the beginning don't have a lot of times the cash flow to invest properly to be able to learn. But then the people who have run themselves into the ground and need a savior, it's going to cost you a lot more, right? Because somebody like me is going to have to come in and be like, hey, why are we doing it this way? Because it worked once, and now it's the reason why it's not working at all, right? And the thing that I see that happens a lot in healthcare is a lack of innovation in these entrepreneurs, right? So the way we've always done it is where innovation goes to die, and that's why you see that's why I don't work with in-network insurance-based clinics because they refuse to. They just all they want to do is how do we get more patients in the door, and then how do we hire somebody else to fight insurance companies. And I'm like, you're asking how to divide the pie more. I want to teach you how to make a bigger pie. And they're just like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to invest in learning how to sell ancillaries to our patients. Our patients are going to buy that. I'm like, okay, well, people who are actors who play doctors on TV can sell drugs better than you. I don't understand why that's the case. Like, come on, let's go. Like, let's, can we get out of the 1960s and 70s thought process of more is better? It's not. It's more quality for your patients is better, right?
And I think in general, business owners always say, if I just had more revenue, that would solve my problems. And it doesn't. It becomes more headache and more cash being burnt out the door.
Yeah, 1,000 times over.
Is there anything else we should have touched on that we didn't get a chance to?
No, I don't think so. I think that was a pretty good discussion on profitability and some of the things in Mike's book. I've read several of his books, and all of them have such great business tidbits inside of them. So if you're listening to Rocky in this podcast, I definitely recommend you read Profit First for sure, but other of Mike's books have really good business tactics inside of them.
They do. And there's books beyond Mike's. And at the end of the day, books are about $20. It is the cheapest education you can get. And, whether you read or you listen or however you consume,
Mm-hmm.
I think it is the best way for a business owner to get educated on the different parts of business. And at least it allows them to know enough to ask the right questions,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure they have the right people in the right seats doing the right jobs. And how Mike's Clockwork talks about how to build the systems and operations.
Mm-hmm.
So he's got that book, Get Different, talks about marketing. It talks about all these different things. And you gotta have that information, because I think a lot of times, like, I deal a lot with marketing agencies, and their biggest struggle is they walk in, they're like, what makes you different? And they go, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, yeah, blah, blah, blah doesn't make you different, right? You're saying what everybody else is saying. Why do people buy from you? You don't know? Like, do you really
Right.
understand what
Yeah.
it comes down to? And so you can learn all of this for free. You can hear it on podcasts. We give all of this away there's no hidden secrets here.
Right.
Like, there really isn't. What's different is people like Daniel and I dig in and make awareness and then help you figure it out faster, quicker, and with less mistakes. That's all. So wherever it is for you, do what works for you.
Less heartburn is always better. Raghi, you said that, what makes you different. And that's a problem I'm dealing with right now. If you look at healthcare and you go to the healthcare website, you see the same things on there. Like, you see, we use the most up-to-date technology, right? We have the most advanced trainings in a customer service-based environment. Well, if those same three things are being said on everybody's website, who actually has the most up-to-date technology? Who actually, Like, who actually does that? And the thing that I see a lot of people do is, why should I hire you equals, let me tell you about myself. And that's not the answer. You should hire me because of what I can do for you, right? This is your problem. I have a solution that can fix your problem. That's why you should hire me. And that is the answer to every business. Yes, on a personal note, we got into business because we wanted time, money, which equals more freedom for us. Absolutely. But at the end of the greater why behind that is that we wanted to solve a problem for a certain person that we thought we could do better than anybody else. And when you start losing sight of that and start talking about why everybody should come see you, people tune you out. They don't care. You've got to talk about their problems and how what you have fixes their problems. There's your marketing branding 101.
I think we started here. When people come to me, I have a toolbox, and I know what the right tool is for their particular situation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't try and use a hammer to solve all their problems.
Sure.
Because sometimes hammers work, sometimes they don't. And knowing what tool you need and when and in what order is kind of what I bring to the table. So very much agree. If people would like to learn more about you, find out about your services, where do they do that?
Sure. Everything to know about me and to connect with me is on my website. That website is my first and last name, Daniel Tribby, and the word official. So danieltribbyofficial.com.
And we'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Rocky. It was a good time.
Like I said at the beginning, Profit works in any kind of business. They've got almost 1 million business owners using it. Here's the key. You don't have to modify your business to profit first. You have to modify profit first to your business. You've got to adapt it, customize it, and make it work for the way you do things. All my clients do it differently. But one thing is always true. Those that use it and stick with it tend to have a lot more cash over time. Did I ever tell you the story about my one client, 6-figure business owner, walked away with over $1 million this year, all taxes paid when he pulled out his profit account as he exited his business? That is exactly what happens. And the reality is, you don't need more resources. You need to be more resourceful and remember to focus on the bottom line and then take that profit and go enjoy life. Have fun.
If you'd like for us to be a part of your profitability journey, we have different programs available ranging from do-it-yourself to one-on-one coaching. Our course, The Profit Blueprint, teaches you everything you need to know to transform your profitability. There are 3 different tiers ranging from DIY to done with you so that businesses of all sizes can get the support that's best. Join the waitlist in the show notes to get more information and be a part of the next cohort. If you want a done-for-you service, you can hire us as your chief profitability officers. We only work with a handful of clients, so they all get our full attention. We work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $10 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on our calendar for a good fit conversation to see if we're the right people to support you and how we can help you.
Remember to check out my other podcast, Richer Soul, where we talk about how to live the ultimate life and be the best business owner you can be. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.